Welcome to the HR Huddle podcast, presented by Sapient Insights Group, the ultimate resource for all things HR. It's time to get in the huddle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the HR Huddle podcast. And to this episode of HR We Have a Problem. I'm your host, Kim Seals. This year, despite millions of Americans quitting their job to actively seek new employment opportunities, hiring is harder than ever. Why? Your job postings may be ruining your recruiting efforts. Whether it's biased language, ridiculous requirements, or descriptions that discourage qualified candidates from applying. In this episode, we are naming and shaming the worst offenders in your hiring process to leave you with strategies you can use right now to tap into top talent, both in and outside your organization. Joining me to help you level up your recruiting efforts, even in this current climate, they are the founder and CEO at 3 Years Media, one of the most sought-after global speakers on recruiting, the former managing editor of recruitingdaily.com. Welcome to the show, Katrina Kibben.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you. I'm so excited about today's conversation because it's the topic I get asked about so much, which is we're having the worst time recruiting top talent, and how do we fix it? For the most part, it seems like they want to implement a new applicant tracking system or throw up a new page on a website, that's going to solve all of their problems. But I think we can agree that recruiting is broken and it's not necessarily technology that's going to fix it.
Exactly. I don't know anyone who's excited about the word overhaul or transformation after the last, 18 months of our lives, right? Pandemics do not make us more excited about change. I would actually say that we're in a place where we would like less overhaul and way less transformation.
I would so agree with you on that point. So agree. So let's start off with the headlines. What are the top 3 biggest blunders you see organizations actually achieve when they're trying to recruit?
I really think of my answer, I guess, is totally biased to the fact that I am a writer, that I specialize in how we speak to people, because I think that's the part of recruiting that there's so much opportunity to grow, no matter what your budget is, no matter how big your team is, no matter what. And so big picture, I think there's a recruiting communication issue. And we have not addressed the fundamentals behind that. We jump to transformation instead of jumping back to the baselines, working on the foundation of how we speak to people, how we make the ask of something so significant that is change your life for me, change everything for me, come work for me. We can't take that lightly. And I think every recruiting issue, every blunder that's happening in the recruiting process ultimately boils down to poorly communicating what's happening in the process, what's happening next, and why it matters.
You make the case that every recruiter should be a job post writing expert. Why is that? And who should or should not be in charge of writing these job postings?
I'm going to make it personal because I truly believe these job postings are inherently personal, but it actually goes back to a goal setting exercise that I did with myself. About a year ago, I hired a coach, and it was a business coach, air quoting right now, but she was more of a life coach ultimately, because we don't get to be 2 different people in our lives. We don't get to walk into our business and be one human and then walk out and be someone else. And we don't get to leave anything at the door, especially right now. And something that I kept running into is this idea that there was never a finish line. I'm sure a lot of people have felt this, whether you work in recruiting or not, where you're constantly trying to achieve something. And then all of a sudden you look around and you go, what is good enough? What is the answer? And the truth is there aren't often answers. If we don't know what we're looking for, if we cannot define success, if we can't establish a vision for what good looks like, we never get to be good. We never get to hire the right person because we never defined what the right person was in the first place. And so when I think about why everyone should be a job post expert, it's because you want to hire a great team. You want to hire an effective team that really can be successful. However, if you never define success, where are you going? How do you even know you're right?
This whole thing that you bring up about never seeing the finish line is just such an important topic right now. Did you get any good advice that we can all sort of pile on to your life coach and say, how do you actually get beyond that mindset?
Yeah, actually, I've gotten a ton of life advice. And if anybody wants it, I actually write a letter about this every single week and share the things I'm learning, because we don't get a lot of good role models in work. And we can't live in this participation trophy lifestyle. That's how I think of it, right? We accomplish the thing. We go to Singapore. We speak on the big stage. We achieve all of these things. And it doesn't feel any different when you show up at the desk, when you have too much on your plate, when it's all feeling like overwhelming and all of the things that work feels like, whether you work for yourself or you work for a big company. And I think the advice that she gave me and the advice that's really helped me pursue this, in short, is if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Okay.
I think that applies to hiring. I think that applies to life. And it applies to every single one of those finish lines, because if you approach a project with anything but hell yes energy, it's going to not feel like anything. And truly, there are no finish lines. There's only one true ending in our life, and it is the end. It is death, right? We need to stop approaching finish lines and start chasing feelings, the hell yes feeling.
I'm so excited that you brought this up, because it's one of the things that I also see recruiters do with hiring managers is they settle, right? It's like we have such a hard time attracting good talent and people coming into the pipeline that we get somebody that checks the boxes, but we don't have that hell yes feeling about them, and we still hire them anyway.
Right. That starts at a bad hiring manager intake. We don't ask what the hell yes is. And then we get this hire and they're kind of lukewarm and we're all thinking there's a talent shortage. We just need someone. And we walk through it because that's the mentality that we've always operated with. That's why most job postings are awful. That's why most hires are shorter than they should be. And it's because we accept things simply because we've told ourselves that's the way it's always been in our life, in our work, and everywhere in between.
So your advice may be to tell every recruiter to ask that hiring manager, is this a hell yes hire or is this a okay hire? And see if that could prompt them to make the right decision.
I think that's one of the questions you want to ask. I also think some of my favorite questions are, what's happening in 6 months that's not happening right now? What can you not do if I don't find this person for you? I'll even joke and say, okay, let's pretend this is the best hire I've ever made for you. You are sending me something for Christmas, okay? What happens? What are they doing every day? What makes you so proud of them? Because that's the moment I want. Those are the moments that build retention. Those are the moments that build great team engagement. Oh, and all of a sudden, I'm going to drop the buzzword, innovation, because people are happy and proud of their work. And that's the kind of place where things grow.
How do you convey that excitement, that energy, that feeling in a job posting? It's so flat. It's so static. Like, how do you convey what it's going to take for the candidates to really excite you and why the candidates should be excited about the hiring process they may be about to undergo with your company?
Yeah. I mean, the old way is flat and static, but that's not how we do things at 3 Years Media. Okay. We write the stories of people's lives. All right. That's the energy that I workshop with every single team I train. That is the intent every single time one of my writers sits down to do this job posting. It is how we lead intake. We lead knowing the impact is someone's whole life. And when you think of it in that context, I ask everyone at the beginning of training, I say, do you remember what it feels like to be a job seeker? And I say, give me one word. And the words, I mean, it'll take your energy down by 5. Vulnerable, hard, frustrating, sensitive.
Exhausting.
Yes.
That's right? The word I throw in there, exhausting.
Exactly. And when you feel that energy, I ask them, how dare you meet someone at a moment of confession in their life? When you know they are at a rock bottom, you felt the energy go down in this room. How dare you meet someone at that moment with bullshit, lies, and cliches? We will not do it that way anymore. It is for people. And then I do something that I know no one else who teaches or trains does. I have them make a promise to the person on the other side. I have them make a promise and pay it forward for their future self someday when they look for a job, to pay it forward for that family member, their friend, people they care about and love, who want something more from their life, who have had that moment of a confession to say, I want more. I insist that at that moment they make a promise to them, and we make promises about what our writing will be. And that changes everything, Kim. It changes everything because I tell them, okay, we made our promises, and no lie, I'm sitting at my desk. I have my promises right in front of me. And my promises are this, right? My first one is that my writing will be empathetic. I care about the person on the other side, and I'll give them what they need. My writing will be practical. I will tell you the next step. You'll always know what to do and what you will do. And I promise to be different. I refuse to follow best-in-class strategies that aren't best for people. And then I make them make the promise and put the sticky note on their desk every single time. And when I give them coaching, and in the future when they give each other coaching, I ask them not to give feedback on the words. Is this empathetic? Is this practical? I'm telling you, what comes out on the other side is powerful for changing how we think about these job postings.
I don't know that I've ever seen a job posting that made me feel like there was empathy coming on the other side. I'm excited to learn more about that and to really break it down for our audience today about if they were writing a job posting and it was empathetic, what are some of the words that you would expect that they would see in that posting?
It's not even the words. The way I describe it is, if I were sitting next to you in a bar and I asked you, what's it really like? What would you tell me? That is empathy in a job posting. Empathy in a job posting, when it all boils down, it's just telling people the truth and giving them a chance to say no. Because you know what job postings did for a really long time? They were either created as a barrier to keep people out, and literally for hundreds of years, job postings were used to keep people of color, to keep gay people, to keep women out of work. And now job postings are used to invite people into places where they don't belong because we're struggling. We'll convince them. We'll sell them. No, tell me the truth and give me a chance to make a decision. I'm an adult. I get to make a decision. Tell the truth.
My next job posting should say, if you like shitty people managers, we're the place for you.
If you like hard conversations and you feel excited about taking on big problems that impact a lot of people, this job is for you. That's it, right? Because it's the heart. It's the heart you need to do that. It's going back to that intake. When you ask different questions in the first place, people tell you different stories. And truly, this is not a creativity contest. This is a listening contest. We are great anthropologists and, pretty good at writing too, but truly the listening is the forefront.
That's awesome. Let's dive in on this topic of a diverse talent pipeline, because that is another thing that I hear so many organizations say, we need to get more diverse candidate pool. We need to see more diversity through our hiring process, but it does start with the posting, as you said. So what are some of the examples of biased language that you've seen? And what are some of the most obvious disconnects between this goal to have a more diverse pipeline and what the posting is saying to those diverse candidates who may be thinking about applying?
Yeah. Well, I think the one that most frequently people talk about in this category is that gendered language. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of tools in the HR tech and even outside of our landscape that help people understand the bias that is inherently in those tools. Now, a lot of the buzzwords fall into these categories because ultimately a lot, not all. Let me be very clear about this because I do understand that there is some differences in the code here, but broadly, a lot of the code is based on a large database of words. And words like collaborative, words like analytical, words like top talent were put into categories of male and female, masculine and feminine words. Mm-hmm. And these tools were taught to sort, to count, much like a word cloud would. Analyze the words and say, girl word, boy word, this is a boy post, this is a girl post. And they've been able to build some correlation to that in saying, if we change the words, we see a different pipeline actually respond. However, I am non-binary and inherently I struggle with this contextualization of language. I love words, problem number one, but two, as someone who's non-binary, I feel excluded from systemization that is built on a binary. Mm-hmm. When we know better, we should do better, right? And so that actually inspired a 100-year research study on the bias that goes into job postings, because I believe it is fundamentally tactical, not just linguistic. I tested some of those tools, and you're going to get a laugh out of this. I will not name and shame. However, I tested a free tool in the HR technology space, and I wrote very childishly, poop, poop, shit, job description. Okay? Because I wanted to prove a point. These tools can't tell you that you're telling the truth. And the truth, like I said, is the most important part. I typed those words. I hit enter and it gave me a C. It said it was a gender neutral job posting, that I was on my way to success. Poop, poop, shit.
You're on your way to success. I love it.
Okay. And I was like, maybe I was getting a C in in my sense of humor.
Your poop jokes did not get an A rating.
However, those machines are the last step, not the first one. If you are truly looking to build a diverse pipeline, that's not where you start. In order to build a diverse pipeline, number one, you need to make sure that the diverse people at your company are happy. Mm-hmm. Do not create pipeline acceleration techniques like great job postings just to fast forward people into places where they can't be successful. Empathy means caring about people. To me, actually being an ally means that we put people first and we understand that our goals are not more important than other people's happiness. Now, with that said, get off soapbox, is that I think of the job posting as that accelerant and really does have that potential when we remove those historical biases that I mentioned. One of the ones that has lasted the longest is years of experience. Mm-hmm. Whenever I'm in a room, I say, who here has years of experience on your job posting? And not a single hand stays down. Everybody, hands up, right? However, years of experience quantifies time, but it does not qualify anyone. The example I like to give is Jeff Bezos and I, yes, me, have both been CEOs for 3 years. We both have executive experience. We've both led executive teams. We have built new business lines. I could go on all the stuff that Jeff Bezos and I technically have in common. We both have 3 years of experience. Why wouldn't you put us on the same slate? When you say years of experience, it's ageist. You are asking for someone that many years older or younger. That's it.
So instead, you should talk about what they could have been able to accomplish during that time frame. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Because you and I may have had completely different jobs under completely different headlines, but we could have had very similar experiences. I would imagine even if you and I had the exact same job, we would not have the same experiences over 1 year. Why would we try to quantify experience that way? It doesn't work that way. You've either done it or you haven't.
So just to give our listeners some practical advice. So instead of saying 3 to 5 years experience, you would say experience building new products and launching them in the market. Something like that, right? Being clear about that.
You have experience leading a team of 5 or more across a global unit, helping create products and deliver within 12 weeks from beginning to end.
I think that's super helpful, right? I think we have to get down to the real tactics of these job postings. One of the words that I see a lot, in fact, I just was looking at an organization's job posting, giving them some feedback. They literally use the word drive 10 times in that job description. Drive for results, drive for this, drive for that. It's like, am I in a car driving around, or what am I doing here? And we highlighted it and sent it back to them and said, let's find a different word than drive, because we know that is one of those words that can turn off some candidates.
Absolutely. Well, and I read things like that and I think to myself, it's not even that the word is bad. It's that the word doesn't have universal meaning.
Right.
And that's what I really try to get people around this mindset of the buzzword. I can sit here and make fun of them all day. I joke that I can make up the most cliche buzzword sentence right here, right now, and we could search it, and I guarantee I could find 1,000 or more job postings with it in there. And I'm talking, I can do 10 plus words, verbatim match. All right. I've seen that many job postings. I've read these buzzwords that many times. Highly collaborative team player looking to join our rock star startup, transforming. We are the Uber of, right? I can do it all day, but I'm not against the words. I love words. I want to know what the word means for you. I want to know how it's special for you. So drive, okay, you like that word, clearly. Mm-hmm. We've repeated it 12 times. Tell me what someone who's driven at this company does that someone who is not driven would never even think to do. I bet you can get rid of every single drive out of that job posting with the answer to that question. And they won't say drive once.
They'll get rid of it. All right, so let's talk about another piece of the job postings. So here's one. I recently saw a tweet of yours that said, if everyone at your most junior level is quitting because they don't get promoted fast enough, stop saying you want a driven self-starter in your damn job posting. So there's that word driven again, right? What is more realistic language organizations can use in that particular example?
Yeah, it's another tell the truth situation. As a recruiter, we should know why people quit. Why did the last person quit? Why did the last 5 people quit? Especially on high volume, low retention roles, call centers, right? These jobs where you're always filling that rack. You should know why people leave, and that should be one of the first sentences of your job posting. So if everyone is quitting because they don't get promoted for fast enough, I would say this is a role where you learn to become a master. You'll work at this role for a minimum of 3 years before we promote you to X role. Literally, again, you'll notice I just tell the truth. Like I said, not a creativity contest. I wish I am pretty creative. I'll give myself that. But really, this isn't about doing something like writing about dragons and unicorns.
Well, I was just thinking as you said that about you'll stay in this role 3 years. I was like, what a truth bomb that is, right? And there's so many people who would be like, look, if I'm not moving every 18 months, it's not going to work for me. But then you're being honest with them. Here's what you can expect when you come to our organization for this particular role. There might be other roles that have a faster, movement or velocity of talent through that particular role, but this isn't that one. And if you're not ready to sign up for 3 years to really learn and grow and develop before you get to that next opportunity within our company, then this may not be that job for you.
Absolutely. And even as you were saying that, I'm thinking 2 things. One, I would also ask, why do you have to be in that job for 3 years? Because there's usually pretty decent logic behind it. It's not some made up number. For example, the job I'm thinking of right now is a financial analyst. I was working with a large global bank, and you can't learn the job in fewer than 3 years. You just can't. The intricacies of international banking are insane. And you really have to find a specialty. Then you need to lean into that. You cannot move to the next level or be able to advise other analysts until you have that experience and that duration.
Yeah. Another example of a role that I think has some similar reasons why you'd want to stay in it are roles that are about strategy and innovation, where you need to come up with strategies. You need to come up with different products. You've got to then figure out how to commercialize it, get it out in the market, and then see if it's successful, and then be able to course correct and learn from what worked and what didn't work. You can't do that if you're only in that role 12 months. You typically aren't going to get through that entire life cycle. And I think sometimes employees come into it with an unrealistic expectation. We want you to learn and grow and develop in these roles. Then you have to stick around for the full life cycle of that role.
I don't know how many headaches I could have saved in my career if someone had just been honest with me about what the development pipeline was, that they are not promoting me. I don't know about you, but I've been in plenty of scenarios where I was like, I'm working my butt off. I'm killing it. I'm going to get promoted. And then they just gave me more work.
Right. Right. What you got was another great assignment in that same job.
Exactly. I was a marketing channel manager. What would happen is you'd be great at social media. I'm so good at social media. And then they're like, and now you can do print. And now you can do Google ads. And
Let's talk about internal talent for a minute. And job postings are generally written to attract somebody who's not currently in the organization. But your internal employees see these postings too. So as you think about how to make sure you're not missing out on good internal talent who may want to apply for an open job, how should you think about your job postings in that regard?
I actually think that internal postings should be released to employees first. I know that there are a few banks that do that right now, where they will release the job for 5 days to employees only on their intranet. I love that idea because I remember when I first started doing this, I used to get the question, what if my employees see this? And I said, if you have qualified people on your team who want this job and they see this on the internet, you did something wrong, right? You should have asked them if they wanted this job. They should always have dibs because they already work there. And access to mobility, especially side to side, not just up and down, is the future of talent development. And I truly believe that. And it's one of the least valued opportunities that we do not discuss when we talk about development. Everyone pictures a ladder. That's not how growth works in 2021. And I don't think it's how it will work for the future of work.
I think it's more of a rock wall than a career ladder, right? I need to move over to the side to grab this handle. Then I'm going to go up maybe one, and then I'm going to go back to the right. Well, it's no longer a career ladder.
And people would be much happier if we said that during the interview. There's a lot of opportunity here, but a lot of it's going to be side to side, not just up.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you how this person has moved through the organization. And again, if we know that's important because we know everyone quit because of that reason, or maybe we have people not being successful because they're not ready to move side to side. They just want to be good at their one thing. Either way, we need to create that clarity.
So let's say that somebody's taken your class, they've learned how to write these most epic job postings, they get that posting out there and maybe aren't having that success attracting the candidates they want. What other advice do you have for recruiters or hiring managers about maybe changing their mindset a bit as to how this recruiting should work?
Always start with the job title. That's actually the most common mistake that I see because most people don't know how to research their job titles. And we forget that that's such a unique variable in this whole context because, one, all job titles are completely made up, right? They're completely made up. Salary bands, made up because they're associated with made up things. I didn't realize this until I created my own company, went to create a business card, and that job title line is completely blank. And it clicked with me. I literally could call myself whatever the hell I wanted. I could be boss. I could be Louise, it really, anything I want, I could write into that line.
Chief Happiness Officer. That's the title
Exactly.
I want.
Oh yeah. And when you look around, you realize job titles are made up. However, the emotional tie that we have to them is not. When we say, I want to be a director of marketing, when we say, I want to be a CMO someday, right? That is emotional energy that builds and wraps itself in our career, truly. And if we do not pay any respect to that, as leaders, as people who are recruiters who are creating talent pipelines, we're actually not creating a talent pipeline. We're creating what we think people are. And so I have a methodology that people use to research the job title, and it's the easiest thing to fix. So you don't even have to write a new job posting. You don't need to rethink anything except those 2 words you put at the beginning.
If we were to sum it all up for recruiters and hiring managers, what is the mind shift you're asking them to make to really transform the way they're thinking about recruiting and what success means at the end of this?
I want you to treat the person on the other side of this like someone you love. I'm asking for that kind of humanity, and it is a new level. We have spent years pretending we are different than the people on the other side of that application, that somehow there is this elite class of talent creators that have we live on this tower and we're looking down on the peons coming in and they don't know how it works. Well, guess what? We are in an equal playing field for the first time in a long time, and everyone calls it a great resignation. I think it's a great realization that 2 people have power in this equation, right? And that we have to respect the person on the other side of this. And ultimately, I am asking you to pay it forward. And I don't think anyone has really thought about recruiting in that way up to this point. But if we did, I think it would be a whole better karmic relationship, and we wouldn't have to have all those, we're mocking the recruiter conversations.
For sure. I retweeted somebody the other day who tweeted something to the effect of, I bet the person who gave you an opportunity would be really glad to see you give someone else an opportunity. At some point, some recruiter gave you a chance to get through the process, right? Be that person that gives someone else a chance.
I'm getting a little teary when you said that because the man who gave me a chance was a recruiter. He owned a company called the Hayden Group. And if he hears this, hi, Clint, thank you so much. I taught his daughter to read. I worked in a strip mall. I did not have a good job. I was making not enough money to pay for my DC apartment. I barely had money to eat. And this man came in after a sales pitch and gave me this really strange look. And it was a look that absolutely changed my life because the words that came out of his mouth next were, I like you. I think I'm going to give you a job. You're smart. I can teach you. And from there, my entire life transformed because I was very much on this path of being a marketer in retail education and following into the world. And he brought me to an HR technology company, and it literally put me into a different world. We do that for people every single day. I don't know when recruiters got off stopping, realizing, forgetting that we are purveyors of optimism.
Yeah, I think it's directly proportional to how many open recs they have.
Oh, yes. There's a limit. There's a limit in joy. When you are overwhelmed, it's really, really hard to take joy in how much joy you are giving.
Right. It becomes an assembly line, right? It's like, look, I got 50 open recs here, people. Let's keep moving. Keep moving.
Yep.
And then I think that's when you lose humanity. You lose that perspective of one job at a time, one set of candidates at a time, and you're not able to give it that attention that you're talking about.
Yeah. And to me, I'm with you. That's when you change your process. It's not, you don't say, no, I don't care about the job posting because I don't have time. I need to have fewer recs because I don't have time. That's what changes next. It's going back to the fundamentals. I have a really incredibly smart client who says that to me all the time, that big problems, it's the difference between being complicated and complex. Those problems are complicated because there's a lot of fundamental issues. They are not complex. They're actually really easy to fix. You have to prioritize the complicated elements.
And perhaps even prioritize the job postings, right? To your most critical roles. And how are you spending your time on those?
Exactly. I tell people if you have to prioritize, if you have to pick, do your high volume, low retention and your highly niche, i.e. the jobs that are stopping you from creating products, the jobs that are stopping you from delivering to customers. Prioritize those, create a library, and then you're just replicating and it's boxing from there. My system has most people writing in 30 minutes or less.
That's awesome. Who can argue that spending 30 minutes or less is too much time to spend on a job posting? Nobody.
Thank you so much. Every time someone says to me, I don't have time, I'm like, okay, so you have time to fill the role again in 30 days. You have time to post this job 100 more times because no one applies. You have time to go through 400 applicants because you didn't ask the right questions, but you don't have 30 minutes to knock this out. Your choice. You do you.
You can pay me now or you can pay me later.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I want to circle back to a comment you made about pay ranges and talk about the role of pay transparency in job postings. I know you live in Colorado. There's a new, I guess maybe not so new, I think it started at the beginning of the year, where all of Colorado employers, they have to post the pay range in the job posting. How does pay transparency affect that posting process and the applicants?
I mean, you know, I'm always going back to the people. And so my first question is, would you take a job without knowing how much money you'll make?
No.
Thank you. The end. Why does transparency matter? Because no one takes a job without knowing how much money you make. And I think there are a lot of different approaches we can take to be really courteous of that and to talk about bands. My favorite is when I get a pay range where it says, 17 to 36K. I'm like, that's a big window.
Yes.
That is a big window, right? And we do that with a lot of these dynamics. And really, I encourage people, again, tell the truth. All right, we are starting the pay at this. We will not hire someone and pay them less than X. Tell the truth. And say, we are willing to negotiate salary if you have additional experience in the following areas. If you have managed teams of 10 or more, if you have done this, because you know what those compensation variables are, because the compensation variable is not they asked. And that's the screwy part. And frankly, I think ultimately when pay transparency actually happens, because it is a very, very broken system right now, because we just said, put the number on there without any education. I think the education here, the lesson that we need to take away is we need to know why a pay bracket's a pay bracket and be able to associate that with skills and be able to communicate that clearly in the posting, maybe, but definitely in the job description.
Right. And I don't know if you know, but I have a bit of a comp background and have done this in the past. And on average, for most employers, that midpoint of the pay range, so the starting point of the range and the midpoint, that's the hiring band range. But the dirty little secret is some people negotiate above that midpoint. if you don't really understand what the full potential is, then you might feel disadvantaged when it comes to actually negotiating for what is the right rate of pay for you and the expertise you're bringing to this job.
Absolutely. And that kind of education that you just shared is your option, and I think opportunity to be able to crack the door for someone behind you who doesn't know about compensation, who doesn't understand how pay ranges work. So anyone who's listening, rewind, listen to Kim say it again and listen to it and then tell someone that you know. Because that's how I think of pay transparency. Honestly, that's how I think of these job postings broadly. We are cracking the door for people who look like us and people who don't. Mm-hmm. To have imagination, to see potential, and to be able to be informed in a process that transforms their entire life.
Let's drop a little more knowledge on our listeners here and talk about the difference between an advertisement for a job posting, and a job description. Like, how are those things all different and what role do they all play?
If I were building a slide right now, side by side, the first would be the job description, because I really think of this as a beginning to end process. So I'm going to walk you through how my ideal world works. The job description is the legal document, is compensation document. It outlines, let's be real, everything that you need to say if you need to fire that person or you need to prove something to a legal authority. And really, there's not much else to it because that document does not go on the internet. That's the number one mistake that people make in job postings. They post that on the internet like people are supposed to understand compensation legal documents, right? Not my strong suit. And all I do is words. I can't imagine what someone who does not look at job postings or doesn't work in recruiting feels when they read a job description that's talking about compensation bands and benefits and details. The job posting is the marketing version of the job description. It's about 250 words, and it tells you 3 very, very important pieces of information. The first is the impact of that role. We cannot do this without you, and there better be an impact because we do not hire people for fun. The second is 3 tasks you will do every single day. You have to be on board with these 3 tasks or you should not accept this job. And the third are the absolute minimum requirements. And let me emphasize the word minimum because somewhere we got that really screwed up. So minimum means you could not possibly do this job if you did not know this. If you only write those 3 things in, you have created a great job posting. Leave it, be done. Truly. The marketing version, because the goal of a job posting is twofold. You want someone to be able to answer, yes, I can, or no, I can't do the job. And the second piece is, yes, I want to, no, I don't. And you have to tell the truth to help someone make that decision. And finally, the job ad is how you use that job posting, all the sentences within it to market the posting. I think of that as the Instagram post, the Indeed post, the however you drive people back to the base. What do you do to market and drive volume?
That's perfect. I think that's a great way to sum it all up for everyone. As we wrap it up here today, and this time has gone so fast, I can't believe it's time to wrap it up, but any final words of advice, any final pieces of wisdom for our audience today?
I think a lot of recruiters at some point told themselves they are not good writers. And I really want to emphasize right now that if you do a workshop with me, you're going to hear this again. And I want every recruiter to hear this, whether you work with me or not. The intent, you do not have to be a great writer to do this. You do not have to be a great writer to write a great job posting. I need you to remove the block between your brain and your hands because every recruiter knows what to say. I'll get them in the room and I'll go, okay, push that piece of paper aside. Push everything you know aside. Look me dead in the eye and tell me what you would say to me if I asked you as a candidate, what does this mean? Can you just tell me what this means? What would you say to me next? 9 times out of 10, I need you to just write that down. You know the answers. You know how to do this. What I'm teaching, again, it is not masterful creativity. It does take practice, but ultimately this is about telling the truth in an area where you know the answers. Speak your truth.
What a powerful way for us to end the conversation today. Thanks so much for sharing that. And Katrina, again, thank you for joining us. This has been so invaluable. And I'm thinking of at least 5 recruiters right now that I'm going to be sending this link to so they can be listening and learning from today's conversation. For our listeners today, if you want to hear more of Katrina's advice, or if your team needs help becoming better writers who attract top talent, head over to 3earsmedia.com or follow Katrina on Twitter at Katrina Kibben. And that's where you'll find many more words of wisdom. I know I really enjoy following you on Twitter.
Thank you. I'm the only Katrina Kibben in the world. So if you spell my name right,
if you spell your name right, that's half the battle. Well, thanks again for joining us. This has been amazing. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Be sure to subscribe to the HR Huddle podcast and tune in weekly to our other shows, Spilling the Tea on HR Tech with Stacey Harris, and Per My Last Email, where we dig into what's broken in diversity, equity, and inclusion with Pam Jeffords. And we'll see you in our HR Huddle.